It's time for change. And finally, after a long wait, Noah finally came. There he is. Alright. Got Noah. Alright, let's start. Alright. Alright. Chapter 16. A report prevails here that a most vile, deep-laid plot was yesterday discovered at New York. I've not been able to ascertain the particular facts. However, 40 persons are apprehended and secured, among them the mayor of the city. What baseness are enemies not capable of, destitute of every virtue? God forbid it should ever be the fate of America. A letter from the congressional delegate William Whipple and Joshua Brackett. Ruth fell asleep quick that night. My arms around her. I had washed the blood from her kerchief and hung it to dry. There was a lump on her head, but it would go away. Madame's threats would not. I slowly pulled my arms out from under my sister. She sighed, curled into a tiny ball. I pondered the problem all day and half the night. No matter how many times I turned it round, I found the same answer. We had to flee the city. I sat up, pulled the blanket over Ruth, tucking it under her feet to keep them warm. All right. Noah. I'm here. You're reading for a second. All right. The wings that could spirit us away were hidden in the master's. Hold up 1 minute. Yep. Alright. The wings that could spirit us away were hidden in the master's desk. I had to take the West. It would buy us our freedom. But Bellingham would not listen. After all, not after the incident with the linen chest. I had to deliver it straight to the army. The sound I had been waiting for broke through. The roar of Master Lockton's snores, starting up as the grandfather clock chimed at midnight. I put on my skirt and made my way to the bottom of the stairs. The hour was upon me. 'Twas the time to act. The moon was my friend. It lit up the library enough for me to make my way without stumbling into anything. A snuff jar stood on the corner of the desk. I held my breath as I lifted the lid, put my hand inside, and slowly pulled out the keys. I crouched behind the desk and examined them into the moonlight. Only one was small enough to fit into the top drawer's lock. I inserted the key and turned it gently to the right. There was a dull clunk. The drawer slid open. I forced myself to remain still and to count to 20. Often snores continued above, regular as waves crashing against the side of a ship. I pulled open the drawer and peered inside. It was crowded with of abandoned quills, a rusty tinderbox, and a few coins. And pound notes, which I sore tempted to take. I felt through the drawer with careful fingers what he had done with the rest. Was it in his coat pocket? I searched the back of the drawer and pulled out the black hair ribbon had given the gold button. Had given to the two gold buttons for safekeepings. There, from the farthest reach of the drawer, I pulled a single sheet, folded once. I held it up to the light and quickly read. There was a list of names. The mayor's at the bottom. It titled, "The Committee to Preserve the King's Peace." I took the paper in my pocket, tied it tight, and swept it under the waistband of my skirt, where it could not be seen. I closed and relocked the drawer, and carefully returned to keys. Wait. I'll return the keys to their hiding place. I tiptoed back through the house and slipped outside, quiet as a ghost. The air was hot and dripping, as if the city were trapped in a wool blanket, just pulled from a boiling pot. I made my way along the streets, only seeing my cats, rats, and a slave hurrying to a bundle by her head. She carried a lantern, and no doubt had a pass from her master. She was allowed to be out walking after dark. I was not. The woman said nothing. She passed me, singing the second verse of a Yankee Doodle in a strong voice, which I thought curious indeed. I listened to the words of Father. I went down into the camp along with Captain Gooding, and there we saw the men and the boys, as thick as pasty pudding. Oh no! Oh no! That's not good. No, where did? Whoa! Wait. We're gonna start back on Yankee Doodle. The second verse is a Yankee Doodle in a strong voice, which I thought curious indeed. I listened close to the words. Father and I went down to the camp, along with Captain Gooding, and saw the men and boys as thick as pasty pudding. She was sending me a message. I dove behind a log barricade just as two soldiers turned the corner, talking intently to each other and sweeping the streets with their eyes. I saw a quick prayer of thanks to the sighing woman for help. When the echoes of the soldiers' boots have vanished, I moved on, staying away from the lights and sentry fire, passing under the dark shadows of King George's statue at the Bowling Green, returning to my destination. Oh my god, my neck hurts. Alright. I think we're good. Alright. 20 more pages. Too many. This is getting annoying. Alright. The battery was a fort at the southern tip of the island. High walls and cannons that pointed over the waters to discourage enemies. It was headquarters of the Patriot Army in New York. Even if General Washington was elsewhere, here I could find an officer who would understand the value of the West. I marched past the rows of tents set up on the grounds outside of the fort. trying very hard to ignore the men and boys who stared as I walked by. As I neared the gate, a sentry stepped out and blocked my way. "You got a pass, girl?" I swallowed hard and tried to remember the name of the colonel who worked with Master Bellingham. Fagin Jaden McRonald. Well, a few other soldiers drinking coffee outside the tents stopped talking to observe. "Please, sir," I said, polite and firm. "I've come with an urgent message for Reagan, for Colonel Reagan. Sir, tell me and I'll see that he gets it." "I cannot," I said. "I must deliver it to him personally, sir." "Who is your master?" Telling a lie would not benefit me. "A royalist, sir. He would beat the bloody if he knew I was here." Looked over and yawned. "Come on, then. I could do with a walk to keep me awake." I followed him inside, past a room of men sleeping on the floor among the hall, to a small room where a fire smoldered in the hearth, a chair drawn up before it. The moonlight had broke free of the clouds again, and lay in gray pools beneath the windows. A table stood by the door, where a heavy-set man scratched away on a piece of paper, his work lit by a half-dozen candle stubs that would soon burn out. The soldier drew himself up to his full height. "This girl has a message, sir. It must be delivered in person." The man lifted his hand in the air and continued with what he was writing. I tried to make out what it was. But his scribble was dreadfully bad, just like mine. He finally lay down with his quill, moved his spectacles high on his nose, and peered through them at me. "What is it?" he rasped. His voice sounded raw, like it had been run against a grater. The onion poultice was tied around his neck. I dropped a polite courtesy. "I have information for Colonel Reagan." "He sent you. Who is your master?" "I cannot say." "Then who will vouch for you?" "Ah, I vouch for myself, sir. I am new in the city, and know only a boy named Curzon." One caterpillar eyebrow lifted above the glasses as he recognized the name. "Bellingham's Curzon?" "Bellingham's Curzon," he coughed. "Oh, that fit in," loudly, and sprayed drops of spittle on the pages. He all bluster. He stripped his quill in the inkpot and continued to write. "Take her away, Sergeant. I am too busy for this." The escort grabbed my arm. "Come on." I tried to break free. "Please hear me out." They shook my arm. "They want to kill him." I pulled with all my might and lost my footing. Both the sergeant and me stumbled against the table. The ink bottle turned over and poured across the table in the papers. The sick man jumped with a mighty curse and several ugly statements about my character. "They want to kill the general." I finally pulled free of the sergeant's grasp. "I have proof." All right. The man was concerned only about rescuing his papers from the spreading pool of ink. "Sergeant, remove this birdlet." "Do not touch her." The commanding voice came from the center of the room. The sergeant stood at attention. The man with inky hands did too, swallowing hard and wincing at the pain of his throat. A figure rose from the high black chair that stood in front of the hearth. He wore a dark blue coat of an officer, with buttons and buckles that reflected the firelight. His features stayed in the shadows, but I could see the book in his left hand. his finger marking a page. "Leave us," he ordered. "Yes, sir," Sergeant said. "As you wish, Colonel Reagan, sir," said the man whose clothes were stained blue, but the papers he clutched to his chest. When the door was pulled behind him, Colonel Reagan returned to his seat. "Come here," he told me. "Show me what you have brought and tell me your story, but keep your voice low. The walls have ears." "Yes, sir." My voice strangulated a bit. The colonel tugged at his coat and sat down. He was not wearing a wig, as most gentlemen did. His hair was dark, pulled back in a neat queue. Tied with a string, his eyes sunk deep into his face, with dark hollows beneath them. Well, he set the book on his lap, fingers still marking the place where he left off reading. I weighed my words before I spoke. "I'm in a position to trade with you, sir." "What kind of trade?" "My sister and I, wrongly taken from Rhode Island. I mean, get us back there. Want the passage home in exchange for what you know." "Yes," lifting my chain a little, "sir." Nod gravely. "If your information is as useful as you think it is, she'll personally look into your case, miss." That was far a birth from a swift ship, but I had a little choice. "They plan to kill General Washington." Closed the books, sat on the floor, leaned forward, with elbows on his knees. "Tell me all." I handed him the list and quickly told him everything I knew. He interrupted a few times with questions, had repeat the mayor's words, and then he bade me B-word me to wait by the dying fire as he left the room, and soon reappeared with 4 other men, 4-year-old dragged from their beds. I was fighting to stay awake myself, but I repeated the story to a larger assembly. A quarrel began instantly, the arguments flying across the room. How do we know Lockton didn't center with a false story? That's just a list of names. Anyone could have written it. I know the mayor's handwriting. Those are all dyed-in-the-wool royalists. Everyone. I don't believe they turned a lifeguard. Those men are the finest we have. This is nonsense. I'm going back to bed. Our story confirms what we've heard from other sources. This is from Colonel Reagan. He explains. It was several spies he had brought him from the same room earlier in the day. He walked to the hearth and looked at the glowing embers. All that remains is to decide what to do with the information. Who has the list? A man wearing his uniform coat over his nightshirt waved the paper in the air. "Return it to the girl." "Why on earth would we do that?" he asked. I want her to plant it back where she found it. 'Tis best they believe her plan is still a secret. That improves our chances of rounding them up. The man handed the list back to me. I thought for a moment about tossing it into the fire, for it suddenly seemed frightfully dangerous. I folded it back in my pocket. "Do you think he'll be able to return it to his desk?" Colonel Reagan asked me. "Yes, sir," I said. "If you hear anything at all, you come and find me. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir," I hesitated. "And you'll soon help my sister and me get home." His eyes darted to his companions and back to me. "I shall do what is in my power," he promised. "Thank you, sir." "She'll need the code to get back into the camp," said the man in the nightshirt. "The regulations go out at dawn." "Agreed," Colonel Reagan bent down, so that his face was level with mine. "Do not tell another soul, on pain of death. Do you swear?" "I swear," I whispered. "The code of Ad Astra." "Please repeat it. Repeat it, please." Ad Astra. I had never heard such a word before, but then again, I had never spoken a code. Ad Astra. It's Latin, which means to the stars. to the stars. Will you be able to remember it? I never forget such things, sir. All right? That's it? All right, now I'll come here. Entertain them. Uh-oh. You win. I win. You broke my metal stick. Alright, that's changed. Alright, Noah, say goodbye. Say goodbye, Noah. Alright. Noah's thinking about it. Alright. Let's go on the treadmill, Noah. It's fun. Right, Noah? You enjoying your time? Noah? I am saddened. Alright, goodbye.